All right, welcome back to another episode of Run Mountain Peaks. Today I'm going to go through the Lodge2dodge FKT that I ran earlier this year in June. So I'll kind of talk about a little bit of the planning, the training, and how that effort went. Then I'm going to do a full breakdown of the White Mountains Throwdown, the Boot Spur Throwdown. So September has ended, and so all the results are in on there. So we'll kind of just do a breakdown of all the different times on there and a few different thoughts. And then Bubbas Last Man Standing started today. So no updates on the results there, but I'll do kind of my thoughts on Last Man Standing events. Definitely a cool event, and I think I have a few thoughts, and one day I'm definitely going to run one. So talk about that a little bit, and then we'll do a quick recap of the mountain up down and the long trail world championships, how those races went last weekend. So stay tuned if any of that interests you. So yeah, I guess first we'll do the Lodge2dodge FKT breakdown. I don't know how long this will be, but I'll give a pretty thorough breakdown of everything. So yeah, the Lodge2dodge, I guess we'll just start out with like what that route is. It's a newer route in the White Mountains, so I think it was kind of the idea was invented, I guess we'll say. I'm trying to think of the word here, but Stomp from Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast pretty much had the idea for the route. I think I listened to a little bit of what he said about it, and I talked to him this year after I ran it too. But I think he had done the Hut Traverse, which is one of the big routes in the White Mountains, linking up all of the AMC huts. We could start at either end, but pretty much goes from the Wildcat Carter Notch hut all the way to Lonesome Lake hut. And that's kind of like a big tradition, like the hut crew, runs it, and the 24 hours kind of like the standard there that a lot of people aim for to get under that. And so I think he pretty much did the hut traverse and then was thinking of like what's the next thing that could be done. And so it's pretty much like an extension of the hut traverse. So you pretty much include the hut traverse, hit all the huts in the White Mountains, and then on the end of each of the huts, there is the lodge, basically the Ravine Lodge at the base of Moosalok. So you connect that to the Lonesome Lake hut, and then the Pinkham Notch Joe Dodge Lodge. You connect that to the Carter Notch hut. And adding those kind of like ends onto the route pretty much comes to a 72, I got 72 on my GPS, but like a 72 mile route with about 28,000 feet of climbing. So the hut traverse is 45 miles with I think 16,000 feet of climbing. So it's significantly longer adding on those two huts, or those two lodges. But I think the route itself is a super clean, it's kind of the same idea of the hut traverse. It's kind of like cool, just we're linking all the AMC buildings together in the White Mountains, and it comes out to this kind of crazy route. So I guess when you're thinking about the premier routes in the White Mountains, yeah, the Prezi Traverse, the Pemi Loop, and then the hut traverse. I think those are like three of like the most iconic routes. Competitive, lots of people have run those. And then this year, the last couple of years, the White Mountains 100 has kind of gotten a lot of publicity, a lot of people doing that, and I think I look at that as one of the premier routes in the White Mountains, maybe the country, maybe the world. But I think like the hut traverse is 45 miles, and the White Mountains 100 is like 95. So the bridge from going from like a hut traverse to the White Mountains 100 is 45 miles or 50 miles obviously is a lot, but then in the White Mountains on these crazy technical trails, I think it's just like very daunting. And a ton of people have tried the White Mountains 100. We had a bunch of finishers this year, but a lot of people have DNF'd that like in one go just because it's such a crazy hard route. It's 95 miles with 34,000 feet of climbing on the toughest trails in the north in the country. So I think the Lodge to Dodge is like a really good kind of like a bridge route. You do the Prezi, the Pemi, and the Hut Traverse, and you're looking for something, but maybe the White Mountains 100 is too much. Like Lodge to Dodge, 72 miles, 28,000 feet of climbing. It's like a good bridge to the White Mountains 100. Larson Ojala ran that a few years ago, and he kind of like established the time. He did it partially with Steve Mason, who I think also finished it after a couple more attempts. But Larson kind of had the time on the route, and I think there were only a handful of other finishers that have done the route. So it hasn't had a lot of action. So this is kind of maybe a call to action. We need a woman's time in the Lodge to Dodge, and then we need more people to go for the time that I put up. So that's kind of the route. And I guess my idea for running the route, like why did I want to do it? I've done a few longer things in the White Mountains. So I did the Jigger Johnson 50 mile. The next year I did the Jigger Johnson 100 mile. The first year they had that. Did the Kilkenny 50 mile race last year. And I think ultimately my big goal is to put down a good effort on the White Mountains 100. I think that is like the ultimate goal for me. So could I do the White Mountains 100 and finish it? 100% yes. I definitely believe in myself. I could finish that route. But when I do it, I want to have a good time, and just I want to have a good crack at it. So I think I wasn't quite ready to give it a go this year, and so I was kind of thinking like, all right, well, what else should I do? I've done the longer races, the White Mountain Endurance races, the two Jigger Johnsons, and the Kilkenny. And I wanted something to kind of prep me for the White Mountains 100. And so I think the two options that I had were the Lodge to Dodge or the Penitential. That was another one that I was kind of thinking of. And the Lodge to Dodge one just seemed, it's just kind of like a cleaner route. The Penitential has like, I think almost 10 or 12 miles of kind of like gravel road running. It's kind of an interesting route, kind of like the figure eight, how you do it. But the Lodge to Dodge just seemed like that was, 90, it's pretty much the White Mountains 100 route, 90% of it. So I'm getting on that route, and then it's like building up the perfect mileage and elevation gain. It's pretty much the same ratio. I think it's a tiny bit more elevation per mile, but pretty much the same ratio as the White Mountains 100. So it just seemed like pretty fitting that this is like the next step for me of like getting to the White Mountains 100 time. So that was really why I wanted to run it. And I hadn't done like an FKT or kind of like a supported non-race before. So I kind of wanted to get a little experience, and so I think that kind of like interested me as well. And so that's kind of how I landed on the Lodge to Dodge for this year. So that was this year. And initially, my plan for this year, I was signed up for the WAPAC 50, or the WAPAC out and back in May. And then I wanted to do maybe like a Pemi or something, and then at the end of the year do the Lodge to Dodge FKT. But for a few different reasons, we won't get into all the reasons, but scheduling, just kind of life stuff, it was not going to work for me to wait like in September. Like it was too risky. I just had too much stuff to do, and I didn't want to risk, like that was the one big goal that I had for this year that I definitely wanted to do. So I was like, at a certain point, I was like, all right, I'm going to skip the WAPAC race. I think that's a super cool race, but I really just like the long distance mountain stuff the most, and so that was like the first priority. So I pretty much didn't go to that, unfortunately, and then I said, all right, as soon as we get good weather in June, I'm just going to give the Lodge to Dodge a go. So that was kind of like the plan for the spring, and I'm glad it worked. I did it like that, and it really worked out for me. But that was kind of like the plan there. And I don't know when I decided this, maybe sometime in May. So it was kind of like, all right, I'm going to put a month block in, and then we're going to do the Lodge to Dodge. So that was kind of the lead up, the training. I was kind of building my mileage up, building the training up over the winter. And then once I decided on Lodge to Dodge, I think over the winter I was working on kind of speed, getting faster, some runnable stuff. And then, that May, pretty much the goal was me for just like vert and get on rocks. The whites still had snow in May, or some of them. And so I did a lot of like Monadnock stuff. I did a couple big days at Monadnock to prep for it. Like those are super technical and steep trails, so that was like perfect. And just like getting the legs accustomed to rocks, roots, and up and down steep vert. And so that's how kind of like the training went to it. As far as like volume, what was I training? Honestly, I probably in the neighborhood of like 12 to 15 hours a week, probably leading up for the last kind of like 2 months up to the effort. And then I think my peak week I did probably 3 or 4 weeks out. I think I had it was like an 8 or 9 day block or period. So it wasn't like, it was like an 8 or 9 day period where I did like 120 miles and like 30 or 40,000 feet of gain. It was, a big week for me. I think I ended it with like a 50K with like 12,000 feet of vert of Monadnock. And I remember that week and that training block kind of cooked me, but I feel like that definitely got me prepped for the longer days. And honestly, when I'm building volume in training for this stuff, I didn't do a ton of like super long days. I think for me, I've had some injuries and I don't know, I just can't do like a ton of like super long days back to back. So I think I probably had, a few runs that were over like 4 or 5 hours. But honestly, a lot of my volume was just from like doubles and doing just, a couple hours most weekdays and maybe 3 or 4 hours on the weekends. So I didn't have any like crazy big days. I had the one, I think it was like an 8-hour day on Monadnock when I did the 50K. And that was like, I wanted to prep the legs, give them kind of like, a feeling of what that vert feels like, get a good downhill pounding, and that was probably like 3 weeks out. And then from there, the goal was just like, all right, recover, keep the speed up, and kind of decrease volume. So that's kind of like what the training looked like going into it. And I think I felt pretty, like a month before, I feel like my fitness probably peaked, like my top end fitness, like it always does before these races, it feels like. But yeah, I felt pretty good. I felt as fit as I had been. So I was feeling pretty good about the effort. The weeks leading up to it, I feel like the taper kind of, you start going downhill a little bit. You get little aches and pains, second guessing. And then another thing that I kind of dealt with this year, I had allergies pretty good in the spring. And so that was like the week or two before the effort, I was kind of like feeling sick, kind of feeling low energy. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is not, I feel like a lot of race efforts like that just happens. You're just kind of like anxious, your training's switched up, whatever. But yeah, I wasn't feeling like super great the week before, and so I was like, oh gosh, should I even do it? I'm like, I'm trained up, but I'm not really feeling great. Like I really hope, I was kind of getting some crew involved or whatever. So that was kind of an unknown going into the effort. But getting to the effort, I think I had planned it so like the Juneteenth, I think is a Thursday. And so we get that off at work. So I think I had took off the Friday. We had Juneteenth off and then the Friday, which would be June 20th, and then that weekend. And I think my plan was I had like a couple pacers lined up and I was like, hey, I'm probably going to do this weekend. And they were like, yeah, we can definitely help. And so that was kind of like the goal. I was just going to pick a 24-hour window in that period of time to do it, like the best weather window. The year before, on Juneteenth, though, I remember it was one of those like 95 degrees, like heat warning days. I went up and did Madison with a friend. And so in the back of my head, I was like, oh gosh, I don't want it to be like super hot, like, because it could get hot quick. This spring, I feel like it was pretty cool, but it didn't get hot like super early in the year in June. So I think it would have been fine. But pretty much the weekend before that, so June 12th, I think I ran it on, looked beautiful. Like 50s to 60s, like during the day, 40s. Like I think the wind chill was somewhere in the 30s at night. But it just looked beautiful. And so like I think 4 days before the effort, I was like, all right, scratch this. We're going this weekend. I don't want to risk like the 10-day forecast or whatever. I'm going to just start tapering now, and we're going to do it. So funny enough, I think the Saturday before, so I started on a Thursday. I think it was June 12th. the Saturday before, I ran for like 5-something hours. I did like it was like almost a 20-mile day, running Mount Wolf and the Kinsman Ridge Trail out and back. I was trying to like clear some blowdowns, so I brought kind of like a little saw because I heard there were a ton of blowdowns up there, and I did a little bit of work, but I don't know how much of a difference it made. But I pretty much did a big run then, and then the next day I think I did like a few hours of like super easy hiking, and then Monday morning I woke up and decided I'm going to do the effort. So I did a good amount of stuff that weekend. I had never like ran that much before a big effort, and in the back of my mind I was like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go. I remember my legs being pretty sore, but I was like, all right, I have a few days. I'm very trained. I've been doing a lot of volume. Like, I think it'll be fine. So, and then I think what I did that week, so Monday I did a rest. Tuesday I think I did like a tiny mini workout. Wednesday I ran for a few hours, and then Thursday night is when I started. So that was like my taper for the effort. I think it went fairly well. I think I was pretty ready for it. And then the crew. So that was like the last thing to like orchestrate, because this is a point-to-point route. I had to make sure I was going to have assistance out there, and I wanted at least a pacer or two. So basically, I started sending some texts out the week of, and got kind of like a mini crew to help me. Luckily, it all worked out. And so the crew / pacer, so my girlfriend Jocelyn and my mother were like the two main crew people that were going to meet me at the different crossings, and we'll go through each of the sections. And then I had my buddy Ryan, who really strong runner. He was willing to pace me like last minute, and he ended up taking work off when I told him I was starting Thursday night. So he took work off and was able to pace me over the prezzies. And then my buddy AJ, he was like a last minute, can you hike in some supplies to the prezzies? And he was able to do that. So that was like huge. So that was the crew. That was like the frantic, like getting everyone together, in a group chat. Here's my pace charts. Please help. Thank you so much. And they all did, and they all were like awesome. Like the crew and the pacers, yeah. And we'll talk about it more, but they were just like so on point. So that was kind of leading up into the effort. So I felt pretty good. I felt ready. The only thing, my legs felt really good. Like I think the Wednesday I went for a few mile run, and I just felt really good. Like the strongest and like most ready my legs had ever felt for an effort. But the one thing was like I was just like a little bit stuffy and a little bit feeling like, oh, I could wake up tomorrow and feel sick and have low energy. So that was like the one thing I was scared of. But I feel like I've been there before in races. I was like, we're just going to give it a go. We got it all lined up, and I'm just going to go and try until I can't go. So the weather window. Essentially, I think Friday looked like so gorgeous, and then as the week progressed, there was a rainstorm coming in towards the end of Friday. And so I think one of the things with this route is, and we'll kind of go through the whole section of the route, but the end, so you're going to be 60-something miles into this route, this crazy route, and you're going to be in the northern prezzies, like all exposed, super hard terrain. You're not going to be moving fast. If you're feeling bad, it's probably going to be hard to stay warm. And so, like, I didn't want to be wet, cold, rainy, not moving well in the prezzies and, like, have something happen. So I was like, I'm just going to have to go earlier then and try to be done by then. My time goal was 24 hours. That was like the goal that I had always thought about. I ended up splitting up. My A goal was 22 hours, my B goal was 24, and then my C goal was just finish. That was kind of like how my goals lined up. And so I pretty much just needed that 24-hour window. And so the storm was rolling in at whatever, 10 to midnight Friday night. And I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to start at like 9 p.m., 8 or 9, Thursday night. I had never done a night start before, and so I was a little bit kind of like, I don't know how this is going to go. I felt like it was a little risky, but I think it worked out fine. And I said, we're just going to do it. So the night before, I slept maybe like 5 or 6 hours, so I slept like pretty good. And then went to work Thursday, and then I got home. I took like an hour, like a 30-minute, like a little nap, which was like huge. I wanted to try to do that. So that was like being rested before it, because I mean, so the Jigger Johnson 100 mile took me 39 hours. So I was up for almost 2 straight days for that race. And at the end of it, I started getting really wonky. I've done like Hellbender. I did Hellbender 100. That took me 26 hours, and I barely slept the night before. And I started kind of getting wonky in there. So for me, like that 36-hour mark of just staying awake, it feels like when you start to get wonky. So I felt like it was a risk to be up for like 12 hours before and then start at night. But I think the weather window was so good, it was worth it. And then the other thing that I kind of was like, I don't think it hurt me, was doing the night sections with like fresh legs, probably, or just like a fresh attitude, probably helps you move a little bit better. And so I was like, give it a go. I texted one of my friends. I was like, hey, is this crazy if I start? And they were like, I've done good efforts starting at night. Like, I think you're good. So I was like, thank you. I needed that. And so, yeah, so that was the plan. So pretty much the route starts at the lodge at the base of Moose Lock. So when you're going up Gorge Brook. And I think at 8:30, Jocelyn dropped me off, and it was like just getting dark, so I just put on my waist belt and my headlamp, and I started off. I think it was like 8:30, and yeah, so you start at the lodge. I touched the lodge, and then you go up Gorge Brook to Mount Moose Lock. That's the first section. And that section is super, it's like an easy grade. It's a very easy climb. I ran a good chunk of it, I would say, but I was very conservative on the first climb, and it felt like there was just no resistance. Like everything was feeling good. I was ready. It was really windy and cold, but like once I started moving, it was fine. And I described that climb as no resistance. That's what it felt like. So I think maybe 3,000 feet of climbing. Felt really good, and was like, all right, here we go. Got to the top, summited Moose Lock, and it's not like super exposed up there. Like it's only, I feel like half a mile maybe total that you're out of tree line. But the forecast for the night was like the wind chill was like at elevation was like 32 maybe. It was close to freezing. So it was cold. And I remember I got up there, and you kind of once I summited Moose Lock and I got kind of like over the ridge, the wind was just insane. Like 20 to 30 mile not 20 30 mile an hour winds. So not like crazy insane, but like not ideal. And I was cold. I remember thinking like this wind is just blasting me right now. That little 0.2 miles to get down below tree line, going down the Beaver Brook Trail, felt long, but finally made it to the tree line. I was like, all right, here we go. I'm feeling good. I need to remember to tell my crew, I need an extra layer for going up Lafayette, because if it's like that, I do not have enough stuff. I need one more like thermal layer. So I remembered to tell my crew that. So got up there, and then headed down the Beaver Brook Trail. I had been up that trail before, and obviously super steep if you've never done it. I think it's actually one of like the terrifying 25, but it's like 28% grade for 29% grade for a mile and a half. And you got to come down that in the dark, and I had never done it before. So like the top is pretty flat, was moving pretty good, and then coming down Beaver Brook, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a tough descent. And I think I was ahead of time on my splits by like 5 or 10 minutes at the summit of Moose Lock. And then coming down Beaver Brook, I pretty much lost all that time, and I was just like right on pace with my splits. And I was like, oh my gosh, my downhill splits, especially for the first couple sections, might be a little too fast. Because I was running like pretty hard down that, and I didn't like my legs didn't feel like they took a huge beating, but that descent was slower than I thought it would be. But got down that fairly good, and I think I was at, I don't have the times in front of me, but it was like 2 or 2:30. I have a whole write-up with all the times and stuff, but got down, met Jocelyn there, so it was, maybe like 2-ish, a little over 2 hours to get there, so the Beaver Brook Trailhead. Got a quick resupply, maybe spent 5 minutes there, and then headed over the Kingeman Ridge Trail. And so this is probably like the quietest section of the AT in the Whites. I feel like there's not a ton of like list peaks. There's not a ton of just action on this trail. You kind of have that, I'm in the middle of nowhere feel. I had ran it once on that kind of clearing day the weekend before, and I only saw like through hikers. So that section was like just a little bit, it's slow, there's not much out there, it's just a little bit daunting, it's a long section, but I headed up. You pretty much head up to Mount Wolf on that climb. That's like the first peak of interest, and it's kind of a steep climb to start from the highway, and I think immediately, maybe like a couple minutes into that climb, I kind of started feeling that like low energy of like what I had been feeling from kind of like allergies and not feeling great, and I was like, oh my gosh, this might not be good. And what started hurting? So I was climbing up that. Oh, my chest started hurting a little bit, and I don't know what was going on, but I think my body was kind of telling me like was just trying to scare me, and I was like, oh my gosh. But I think 10 or 15 minutes went by on the climb, and I started feeling okay again. I'm like, all right, I'm good. Just be calm, be cool, keep moving. It's early. And so started climbing. I didn't go super hard. I was pretty conservative on that section. Like I wanted to start really conservative. I feel like these long efforts, just like pacing them appropriately just helps so much. And so, yeah, climbing up to Moose and then climbing up to Mount Wolf, I just tried to just like keep it very controlled. Yeah, and that was the goal. So it was moving fairly well. I think I was losing a little bit of time as I got up to Mount Wolf. Like I was already behind on my splits, and I was thinking like, oh my gosh, my splits might have been too fast. I don't know if I could do this in 22 hours. But just kept moving. Really not much to comment on that section. But the one thing. So as I was getting up to Mount Wolf in the middle of this nowhere trail, I'm getting up to Mount Wolf, and through the trees I can see it was a full moon out. Just big, bright full moon, and the clock was just hitting midnight for Friday the 13th. And so, because I started Thursday the 12th, so I'm pretty much summoning Mount Wolf on a full moon on Friday the 13th, and I am thinking, if I ever go out on the trails, I mean, tonight's the night. Like, I might just hear a werewolf tonight, and that might just be it. But... yeah, so I was kind of like, and before the effort, I was like, should I even try this on a Friday the 13th? But I was like, no, I'm starting on the 12th, so I think it's fine. But, yeah, try not to get too in your head when you're in the middle of nowhere, falling behind in your splits, not feeling good, just, like, praying, like, please, just anything but a werewolf. Like, I just don't want to hear a wolf howl right now. That's, like, the last thing that I need. Did not hear a wolf howl. But kept moving, made it to the little shelter that's down kind of like over the crest of Mount Brook, and then started heading up to the Kinsmans. And so South Kinsman, the climb up is actually like, it's pretty steep. It's pretty, the trail was like, there were a ton of blowdowns this winter, so the trail was kind of slow moving. But I started to honestly, I was like, I need to make up a little bit of time. The way that I split out efforts is I just go by mileage and vert. Miles plus vert, for each section. That's just like how I feel like paces are hard to do in the whites. Like I'm going to keep an X amount of pace. So I just calculate miles plus vert. So if you have a 3-mile climb with 2,000 feet of vert, that's just 5. And then I assign trails like a number where I think I could run them. And so basically on a downhill, like if I assign a 5 on a downhill, you have to run a 12-minute mile. So like on these steep downhills, it's very hard to make up time. So the way that I pace them are basically like I can make up more time on the climbs. So... and I was kind of behind, and I was feeling pretty good, actually. Like, I was climbing actually still well. I must have been at, like, almost 6,000 feet of climbing, 5,000 or 6,000 feet. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to start climbing, like, a little bit harder. So that climb I actually pushed a little bit, especially towards the top. And I think I made up, like, 5 or 8 minutes or something like that. And I was getting closer to my splits. And I was like, all right, these splits aren't unattainable. Like, I just need to pick it up a little bit. So summited South Kinsman. And I was finally, like, feeling good. I feel like I kind of snapped out of, like, the night haze. And I was making up time, like, which I feel like if you're just falling behind your splits every section, it's very, like, defeating in an ultra. If you can have just a couple sections where you feel good, that's, like, it can be, like, a big momentum boost. So I felt good. From South Kinsman to North Kinsman, I think I climbed and maybe made up a little more time, felt good. And then descending down North Kinsman, like the Fish and Jimmy is just like a steep, rocky, kind of slower trail. Once you get to the Lonesome Lake hut, that descent is a little bit faster. But even that descent in the dark, I was thinking like, oh, I thought this was like a cakewalk out, but it really, the start of it really isn't a super cakewalk. But I made up a little more time there, and pretty much I was meeting my mom at the Lafayette Trailhead, Lincoln Lafayette Trailhead, and I think I was only like 5 minutes behind my splits. And so I had made up some time. I had made up about 10 minutes, so I was feeling like pretty good, and I was just overall feeling good. And so meet my mom. She kind of refuels me, and I'm like, how long till sunrise? She's like, oh, an hour or so. So, as I'm going up, it was maybe an hour, hour and a half. It's like, all right, we're almost done this night section. Like, it was, on that Kinsman Ridge Trail, it's just long, and it's kind of slow, and the nighttime running, it's just annoying to run in the nighttime. Like, you're going slower, it's harder to navigate the trails, or just like, I don't know, I feel like it's just a little bit more annoying and slower when you're running in the night. And so it was kind of just like wearing on me, and I was excited to be done. I think climbing in the night is a lot easier. You don't lose as much time. Like, I feel like when you're climbing, if you have little branches or little like areas of the trail, you have the time to kind of like to pick the best route. But when you're descending in the dark, you don't, and that's where it gets like you lose the most time. So I pretty much had an hour of ascending in the dark, and then it was going to be sunrise, and I was excited for that. So started going up to Lafayette. So you take the old bridle trail up to Greenleaf Hut, and then up to Lafayette, and I started climbing. Like, I think I was almost at like 10,000 feet of climbing, and I was still climbing well. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna climb like fairly hard. So climbed well, was making up time. Like, on the climb, I knew I was making up time, and I was like, all right, I'm feeling good. Get up to the hut, keep moving. I might have filled water up to the hut, but kept moving. And then going up to Lafayette, this is where things got dicey. So it was almost sunrise, and I thought it was supposed to be a clear day, but it was cloudy and it was windy and it was cold up there. It was definitely like low 30. It was the wind chill was freezing, and the wind was probably 30 to 40 mile an hour gusts once you got up there. And so I grabbed an extra layer from my mom, put it in my pack. And so I was just wearing a t-shirt, and then I had like a Houdini that I put on Moosalok, and then I was gonna put that on there, and then I had an extra thermal layer, and then like an emergency blanket and like a poncho. So I had stuff to put on. I had buff gloves, all that stuff. But as I'm going up there to Lafayette, it's kind of cloudy. The visibility isn't great. It's really windy. The wind was coming from like the northwest maybe, so I was just getting blasted on the climb up to Lafayette, and I was at a point where I was feeling good and I was moving well, which was good, and I was like, but I have to get off this mountain. I didn't even want to stop to throw on the thermal because I would have to take off the pack and then the shirt to put it on, and I was like, oh, I might get really cold when I do that. So I just kept moving and was like, I am only going to have to do that if I really have to dive behind like a rock and like, hunker down for a little bit. But so that was like kind of dicey, but it ended up being fine. I summited, I was moving well, and then I was like, I need to get off this mountain. The mountain gods did not want me there, and I was just, let me get off and I will be good. So I started descending, and like you're coming over kind of those little false summits, and just the wind is blasting me straight on, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But finally I kind of got down low enough where the wind wasn't that bad. I never had to put on the extra thermal stop or anything. I just like kept moving and was like, don't do anything stupid here. Just be cool, be chill, and get down. So that was kind of like the dicey Lafayette section. But then getting down from there, I was losing time. Like, so you get down and then you start going up to Garfield. So you're on the Garfield Ridge Trail, and I lost time on the descent. So I'm like, wow, my descent splits must just be super fast. Like, I was trying to move pretty good. Like, I was trying to get off the mountain. Like, I was moving fairly well, but I was like, oh man. But kept going, climbed up to Garfield. I think I made a little bit time up on the climb. So I'm like flirting with like staying on my splits, but I'm kind of feeling daunting. Like, I don't know if I can maintain his pace for 50 more miles, 40 more miles, whatever it was. But summit of Garfield, at the top of Garfield, I start coming down. All of a sudden I see, and it's the morning, it's getting lighter now, and I just see a deer take off in the woods, like almost near the summit of Garfield, which is crazy. I have not seen many deer in the whites. hardly any on trail, and like to see one that high, that was like very cool in the morning. It kind of like uplifted my spirit a little bit. But right around there, descending Garfield, like there's this big waterfall you got to go down. So went down that. Somewhere around this area, I started having like lower abdomen, and I'll just say it. It felt like I got kicked in the balls, and it was just had this like really intense pain, and I was like, oh God, I don't know what this is. And like between Garfield and Galehead, it was really bothering me to the point where I couldn't even run downhill anymore. Like I had to start hiking. Um, and I didn't know what was going on. I was wearing a waist belt, and then I was wearing, no, the shorts that I was wearing had a belt, a maiden belt, and then I was wearing my waist light, which was pretty tight because you want to keep it on there firm. And then I had my phone underneath the waist light, so I think I was just getting a lot of pressure on like my lower abdomen. I don't even know what you call it, like upper crotch, lower abdomen area. And I think something like that, it just really, started bothering me to the point where I could barely run. I was like, oh my gosh, this is not good. And so I'm like trying to kind of like still like power hike, hobble, move decently fast, but it's just not going away. So I think I ended up stripping down on the trail. I had like these spandex on, took the spandex off because I was like, I need some breathing room here. So I just had my shorts, and that which had like a little bit of a netting, but it was like loose. And try that, and it wasn't working. And like at this part in ultras, I feel like I've had a few kind of issues that I've never had before pop up in ultras, and every time that it's happened, I think of Courtney Dauwalter saying, ultra running is just problem solving. So I was like, okay, I just need to problem solve here. So first I'm going to try to just take off my spandex. Maybe that was just compressing things in a weird way. I'm going to take my belt off and see if that helps. So kept moving to Galehead, and it didn't really help that much. So I was like, all right, I tried this. I don't know what's going on. This is not good. Got to Galehead, and so my mother actually hiked into the Galehead hut. She was going to meet me with a resupply there. So I met her, and I told her, like, I told her what was happening. I was like, I can barely run. Like, I don't know what's going on. Dropped my pack and went and tagged Galehead, which is on the route, which I'll kind of talk about the route after. But, yeah, dropped my pack and was like, I don't know. I'm not moving well. It kind of hurts in the up. It's just like, it's not feeling well. And she was like, I don't know. Like, just keep moving. So I was like, I need Advil. Can you find Advil for when I get back from Galehead? I'm going to take some Advil and just see if that helps. Typically, I don't take that stuff when I'm running these, but I was like, I just need to try something. So took a couple Advil, refueled, maybe spent 5 minutes there, and then headed up the South Twin climb. The South Twin climb, I basically was like, I had been battling this for maybe like for like an hour or two. And I was like, maybe I'll drop. Like, am I going to do permanent damage? Am I going to be able to have kids? I've heard of, like, basically your balls getting twisted. I'm like, is this going to happen? Like, I don't know. And sorry for the details here, but this is what I was dealing with out there. I'd never had it happen before. And I was just like, at one point, I thought about it for so long. I was like, no, this is a stupid reason to DNF. How would I explain this to anybody? It's never happened before. I don't know what's going on. I'm not going to let this be the reason why I DNF. Like, if I don't hit my times, whatever, but I'm not going to DNF. So I think my attitude switched, and I'm like, I'm just going to figure it out. So I was kind of doing, like, this wide stance hike, like hiking with my legs wider than normal to, like, give stuff space. And it was like I could keep moving. It was kind of working. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to do this. So did that up the South Twin climb, was kind of doing like a weird straddle hike. And I don't think I had seen anyone on the climb yet. Coming down South Twin, some guy was hiking. He's like, hey, how's it going? And I don't know why I said this, but I just looked at him. I said, my balls hurt. He was like, oh. And he kind of just kept moving. And I guess I don't know why I said that, but I think in my head I was like looking for him to be like, oh, that happens to me. Like, you're going to be good, man. Because I was just like alone in my thoughts during that point. But he just was like, oh, and kept moving, and probably was like, that was a weird experience. This guy looked, yeah. So that happened. And then summited South Twin, started descending again. It was kind of bothering me. But I got down the South Twin descent, and I was still moving. I was like, I'm just going to move the best that I can. And then as it kind of flattens out, as you go over to, like, Geo and Zealand, I started feeling better. And I was like, oh, my gosh. And there were some runnable sections there, so I think I hobbled maybe the first half of the runnable sections. But then I started running again, and I was like, thank you. Thank you. I was so excited. So I was feeling really good, and it was like the daytime was like it was definitely sunny at this point, and so like things, and I was feeling good. Like I had told my mom, like, this stinks because otherwise I feel really good. My legs feel good. Everything feels good, and so yeah, that was exciting. And I remember, like, somewhere along that section, I looked at my phone finally, and I had a few texts from people like, you're doing great, whatever, encouraging texts. And I started to just get, like, a little bit emotional. My eyes started tearing. I think I just had, like, all of this, like, good positive things happen to me quickly, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel good. Yeah, and for a little bit, my eyes were just watering, and I was like, I don't know why I'm crying, but I was like, oh my gosh, I hope I can get out of this. It lasted for a while. I've never had that happen on trail. Maybe like 10 or 20 minutes, I was just like, not crying, but like eyes watering. Like, I was like, I don't know what's going on. I was like, I better get over this before I meet my pacer, because I don't want to be like, I don't know why I'm crying right now. So that happened, and then go over Zealand. And then you descend to Zealand Hut. And that descent, I always forget, that descent from Z Cliff to Zealand Hut is steep. And again, like, pretty much the moral of this route is all of the descents are steep, all of the sections are hard, you're going to move slower than you thought. But pretty much from, like, South Twin on, I was making up ground on my splits, and I knew I was moving faster. Like, I think I have pretty consistent splits booked out, but over the course of it, they get a little bit slower, and I was maintaining a steady pace, and so I was gaining finally, and so I was feeling good. Got to Zealand Hut, refueled a little bit, or just got more water, and then hit the A to Z trail over to Crawford Notch. That's where my crew was meeting me, and then that was where I was going to pick up my pacer, Ryan. And so that section, I'm going through A to Z trail, and I've never been on it, and I didn't know really what to expect, but it was a nice trail. I actually liked it. I didn't think it was super slow. Like, I thought it was fine, and I was moving pretty well. And as I'm hiking up, I heard something big, like, run off through the woods, like a moose. It must have been a moose, or I think it might have been a deer or something, which was, like, cool, because I know it's kind of like an out there route. Not a ton of people go on it. But then, like, 10 minutes later, I go again, and I see another deer run off through the woods. I'm like, what is going on? I have never seen deer on trails in the Whites before. Like, this is insane that I've seen two, maybe heard a third deer. Like, I don't know what's going on. But, so that was, like, another, like, good sign, like, a good omen, it felt like. And, yeah, then from there, I just kept moving, and I got up to kind of, like, the saddle, kind of between Tom and Field, and started descending to Crawford Notch, and I felt really good. And I was moving fast on the descent from Crawford Notch. Not crazy fast, but I was running really good. And get down there smoothly, and I'm excited to see my crew. I'm running to the Highland Center parking lot, because that's where I'm expecting them, and I'm running fast. I'm running maybe an 8-minute mile. Like, I'm running. And I don't see anybody. Like, I don't see anybody. No one's out. Like, I'm expecting a pacer, like a setup, like my stuff. Nobody. And I'm like, oh my gosh, am I at the wrong, like, where, I don't know. I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, what do I do? I don't even have my phone. Wait, did I have my phone? No, I had my phone, but I didn't have service. That's what it was. It's like, I don't have service. What is going on? Like, I need to go. Like, I'm on a good time. I spent the last 4 hours grinding for minutes on each section. Where's my crew? And there was this one guy who was like, he was looking at me, and I looked like I needed help, and he was like, hey, do you need help? You need something? I was like, I'm looking for a couple people. Like, I don't know where I see them. Like, oh yeah, I don't know. And he started walking around. I was like, no, can you stay here? Can I use your phone? Like, I was like, I need you to help me. And I think I just started yelling. I was like, hey, I was like, hello, like, mom, like, whatever. And then finally, luckily, I see Ryan. He kind of is from the hut, and then he's coming out of the Highland Center, and he finally sees me, and I think he starts running. He's not in his running stuff, or he has the stuff on, but he's not in his shoes. He's like, oh my God, he's here. And then he kind of looks back, and apparently the tracker that I had used, like, I don't know that my crew knew this because it's the first time using a tracker like this, but like sometimes you're dot watching on a tracker and like it's a couple dots behind, and you're waiting for like if it updates every 10 minutes, you get every 10 minutes, but like you'll miss a couple updates. So I don't think they were looking super clearly, and I think I just ran that descent so fast because I think my mom was like, "Oh, I thought you'd be 45 minutes," but I was like, I was running that because she had pretty much told them, like, I think it's 50-50. He drops at Highland Center. Like, he's not feeling good. He said he can't run. But I was back. And, yeah, I mean, so they were, and so they kind of scrambled out. It didn't cost me a ton of time, like maybe 5 minutes. It was fine. And I was not in like in a bad mood about it. I was just like glad to see them, glad that Ryan was going to pace me. So we got refueled and we took off. And from there, I mean, I feel like I was feeling good. I was feeling the momentum, and then we had a Prezi Traverse to do, and so we just started climbing. Everything felt pretty good. I took more Advil. I don't think I had taken caffeine yet, so I think I took caffeine maybe once we got up this climb, but was climbing with Ryan. He was carrying my snacks, and so I had my water, he had my snacks, and like I had this stuff in my pack, but he was muling some for me, and he's a super strong runner, and so yeah, he had some of the extra stuff, and I had him carry poles too, which I never ended up using, which I felt bad about after because I'd usually use poles, but I hadn't used poles the whole day. I didn't know if I would need them or not, but I never ended up needing them. But so he was kind of pack muling for me, which some people are like, people getting muled, like it's just gonna make an effort faster, and then. I mean, the goal of this was to kind of like prep for a White Mountains 100 go. And so I just wanted to kind of get practice with that. And he was totally fine to do it. He was super fit, and it worked out. And so we start climbing up the Prezi. And when I was in the Garfield Ridge area, like it was supposed to be a clear day. It was cloudy, windy, and nasty out. And I was thinking like, oh my gosh, did the weather change and it's going to be a bad day? Because, oh my God, the Prezi's on a bad day is hard. And I kind of asked him, like, is it? And he's like, no, it looks good. And we got up there, and it was just gorgeous. It was clear. It had a light breeze, and it wasn't super hot, like maybe 60 max, but probably in the 50s like, it was just gorgeous running weather. And we just had a good time on the Prezis. He had never paced someone before, and he was just, like, so on top of everything, like, he's, like I said, super fit, a very strong runner, very, very well researched. Like, he does some coaching. He's coached himself. He knows, like, fueling. He just loves endurance sports. And yeah, he knew exactly what I needed, even not pacing someone before. He was just on top of it, like, reminding me to eat just a little bit more than I want to, which is always what you need to do. Taking care of little stuff, like, so I could keep moving. And then he was fit enough that he could just stop, take care of something, and then catch up. Like, just the ideal pacer. And we just had a good time, cracking jokes. And yeah, so we get up to the Prezis. The climb up to Mitzvah went well. We got more water there, and then as we're kind of going up into the Prezis, I realized, and this is it always at the beginning of the year. There's a day you go up into the Prezis and you forget sunscreen, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get cooked, and you get cooked, sunburn, because you're just getting blasted by the sun. But I had forgot, and I had asked him, like, do you have sunscreen? He's like, no. Usually I'll put sunscreen in a little Ziploc bag, but I just didn't. And so I was like, Ryan, I think we need to get sunscreen from somebody because, like, I feel like you have a lot of stressors on your body. Like, you're pushing your body to the limits. And, like, if I get sunburnt and, like, by the end of the day, if it's, like, showing up and I just have more inflammation and, like, I don't know how it's going to affect me. And so I was like, I'm not going to make you do it, but I'm going to start asking people for sunscreen. So I asked a few people, and finally somebody had sunscreen, and he was super. I just kept running, honestly, and Ryan kind of stopped, grabbed it, and kind of told him what I was doing, and he was like, oh, just take the whole thing. Like, you're good. Thank you so much. Or whatever. And I was like, thank you so much, whoever that guy is. I was like, I need to start carrying sunscreen and, like, pay this forward to somebody eventually one day. So some guy who was super excited that I was out there doing that, he just gave a whole bottle of sunscreen to Ryan, and it was awesome. Ryan caught up, and pretty much he would lather up, he'd do the back of my legs, and I would keep running. He would get more sunscreen, and then I think I ended up doing, like, my face and arms and stuff. But yeah, just, like, stuff like that makes an effort go faster. And so we had sunscreen. I was feeling good. I was eating good. I took some caffeine. My lower abdomen, upper crotch pain was gone. So that was like exciting. And like everything was just feeling like as good as I could have hoped. The prezzies flew by. I mean, it was just a gorgeous day. We were just enjoying it. I really have no updates. You pretty much take like the AT for the whole route. So you don't summit some of the peaks. Like we didn't summit Washington. We didn't summit Monroe, I don't think. But yeah, we just had a good. We were just moving well. We were running like there were some like sections of kind of flat sand that we were running almost 8-minute paces on. Like when we had it, like if you got it, you got to run it, and run it while you got it. And we were running. I was running some uphill still, like the moderate grade upstills. So like everything was going to plan. In the prezzies, we were meeting up with AJ, who had just had like a supply drop. And he was going to meet us kind of by the cog tracks. And so we're kind of getting close to the cog, and we just don't see him. And as far as people that I like trust, like is going to be there for something and is able to handle themselves in the mountains and on trails, probably my mother is number one. She's my mom. And she's just a super, like, will always be there if you need her person. And she's finished the grid, so she knows all these trails, like, very well. So I always trust her. She's probably number one. AJ might be number two. I mean, he just he loves hiking, loves being outdoors, spends a ton of time out there. So when we get to the cog and we don't see him, I'm like, how? I'm like, AJ? If somebody else missed the turn or whatever, I'm like, why is he not here? Like, this is insane. I don't know what's going on. This is super weird. And then he ended up basically just going to the next trail intersection a little ways down. So we saw him shortly after, which was probably the smarter place because he was like, all right, just in case they took a separate, like, they got off track, I'm going to get, I will make sure that I see them. So he was actually doing the smart thing, but he was there. It was good to see him. Honestly, in that mode, though, I just did a flyby. I was like, hello, thank you. I appreciate it. Let's go. I probably yelled a few things, and then I just kept running. Ryan got the supply drop from him, and then he ended up catching it up to me. The northern prezzies went good. Like, you don't have to summit Jefferson or Adams, and so you kind of bypass that. And we were running good on those sections. Honestly, the downhill, I was moving on one of the downhills, and I said around, I was like, I need to eat more if I'm gonna keep running like this. But it just felt so good. I was just having a good day. We get down to Madison Hut, get some water, and then the final climb. This is where I think I started slowing down a little bit. I must have had 23,000 feet of climbing under me, and I was starting to climb a little slower. I didn't have poles. If I didn't want to use them, I still wasn't using poles. But the climbs were getting harder, but as expected. And then so we summited Madison. The descent off of Madison, oh my gosh, so slow, so rocky, so steep. And at this point, I think Ryan was getting a little bit, we were doing a Prezzy Traverse. Like, it had been, I don't know when we had summited, but we summited a little under 5 hours maybe from Crawford Notch to Madison. And then the descent, I think we did the whole traverse in 5 hours and 30 minutes. So we were moving fast, and he was carrying extra stuff. And yeah, I think he was, and this was a short, he did this on short notice, so I don't think he was like, prepped for this fully. But, yeah, both of us, we got pretty quiet on that descent. Like, it was not fun. It hurt for both of us. It was slow, but I mean, we still made it down in really good time, I think, for what the terrain was. And then you had like kind of a quick run out, from like the Osgood Trail down to the trailhead. Yeah, and honestly, he was like, at some point on that flat runaway, he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go ahead and like just get stuff ready, meet Jocelyn at the highway and get some stuff." I was like, "Okay," and he just took off. And I think I think he ended up saying I was running like 6-something minute pace, but I remember thinking like, oh, I thought I was running fast. He just dropped me so fast. But yeah, then ended up meeting Jocelyn at the trailhead. The last crew I would meet, and so I was probably close to 60-something miles in, 20 4,000 feet of climb or something like that. I was still feeling good, but I was definitely hurting. The descent hurt. I was starting to be more in pain. Like, this is when I was not top of the world. I was feeling hurt and and beat up. But took off down the highway, was moving good. Ryan actually, so initially he was just going to do the Prezi Traverse with me, or the Prezis. And then I think I convinced him, like, oh, we should finish this thing out together. Like, you should come with me. And I think, it was just a really long day. So we ran down to the 19-mile Brook Trailhead. He went a mile or two with me up that. And then I think I was like, you know what, man? I mean, this section, like, you don't have to come with me. And he was really hot. Like, he was carrying extra stuff. I think he wore, like, pants, and it ended up being hotter than we thought or whatever. So he ended up being like, okay, I think that sounds good. And so, because the rest of the route was just not fun. I was getting to the point where it was not fun. So he bailed back down 19-mile Brook, and then I finished going up to Carter Notch Hut and then up to the Wildcats. And this is when stuff got real. I was moving really well, and I was kind of pushing. Like, in ultras, I always, like, think back, and I'm like, God, I should have pushed more on that last climb. There are people that can just get in the pain cave and do work in the pain cave. I think I'm fairly good at moving in the pain cave, but I'm not good at, like, actually doing work. Like, I feel like how I describe it is, some of my first few ultras, I would get in the pain cave, and I was good at just kind of enduring it and kind of, like, sheltering in place. But the true savages do work. Like Courtney Dauwalter says, get the chisel out and just do work. And so pushing while you're in the pain cave is really the most impressive part. So I tried to do that. I did that, and I think I did that on this effort well, as a whole. But I start pushing up 19-mile Brook, and eventually I start to just feel a little bit nauseous. I think I just pushed too hard, honestly, is what it was. I just pushed a little bit too hard, and I just didn't realize how, I still had a long ways to go. So, yeah, kind of towards the top of the 19-mile Brook Trail, I was really not feeling good. I was feeling nauseous. I couldn't eat anything, but then I was kind of starting to bonk because I was, you always get a little bit behind on your nutrition, but by the end of it, you are definitely behind. And you just can't digest food as well. And I was starting to bonk, but I was feeling nauseous. I was slowing down. I was like, no, not like this. I need to finish strong. So I make my way over to the hut. The out and back to the hut, I probably looked like a zombie. Like, I was just felt like I was throwing my body forward. Like, I did not look like in good shape. I wasn't moving well. And then climbing up to Wildcat, oh my gosh, that climb is short, but it is steep. And I was inching. This was the first time all day where I was not moving well. I was not moving well, and I was just kind of cratering a little bit. I would force a gel down, and then, like, 5 minutes later, I feel like I would start bonking again. So it just, like, I was just behind on calories, and I was like, I just need to get to the top of this climb. Then I have a descent to Pinkham a notch, and then I'm done. Like, you're so close. I'm going up. I think I passed a few people, and I think everyone, I don't know, sometimes when you're on trail for a while, you just need to, I just need to get stuff out to people. And so I would just I would pass people, like, I'm tired. They're like, me too. I was just complaining, essentially, to these people, and I found that in ultras, if you just shut up instead of complaining, you move faster. So, but I was complaining to a few of these people. It's better than complaining to a pacer, because they're just with you the whole time, and then, you actually slow yourself down. But finally made it to the top. I'm traversing the Wildcats. I'm trying to get food down because I know I still have an hour or so left. And I was finally getting food down. I was feeling better on the downhills. But yeah, just honestly throwing my body over. There's so many little ups and downs. The ups were starting to get to me. And I got to the point. I wasn't delirious or delusional or anything, but I was kind of climbing up to the summit of Wildcat. I think it's D, the ski area summit, and I wasn't even, I thought it might have been Wildcat B or C. I didn't even know I thought I still had maybe another climb, and I was like, I can't do these up and downs anymore. These up and downs are killing me. This stinks. And because I was just climbing slower, my climbing was slowing down. But I come out to the platform, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm here. Thank you. So I get down, and from here, I'd never been down the descent, the Wildcat descent. I heard it was very steep, very brutal. The first half mile, I was like, these people will overblow this. This isn't that bad. But then I come out to the ledge, and you're like a mile or so from Pickup Notch. I can see like the highway and the buildings, and it's just straight down. And after the fact, I found out that it was the steepest mile on the AT that you had to descend with 70 miles on your legs, 28,000 feet of climbing done. Just a brutal descent, but honestly, I don't want to say I bombed it, but I ran it pretty fast. I was very excited. I was very happy with how fast I ran it, especially looking back. I was just trying to get down as fast as I could. My energy came back a little bit, and I thought I ran it pretty well for like where I was at physically. And then I get down, and I'm thinking like it's going to be a less than a mile rail trail to the hut because I had never been there. And I'm like, I'm going to run this thing in, 7:30 pace, like I've seen lots of people do and been like in awe. Like, I don't know how these people do that. Usually I just limp in. But yeah, nope. It was rocky. It was rooty. It was kind of up and down. And I'm running, and then someone goes, "There he is." And I look ahead in the trail. Don't have no idea who this is. He's like, "Nice job." I'm like, and it's Ryan. It's Ryan. So he had like walked out to find me. And I was like, "Oh my God, Ryan." And I was like, "Dude, I thought this was a flat trail." He's like, "You ain't gonna like this trail." So there was a little bit of undulating up and down or whatever, but I was just being a baby at that point. And finally you get to the point where it's a little bit runnable, had a couple 0.2 miles of runnable. You cross this bridge, the highway, and adrenaline's flowing. My final time, I see I look at my watch, it's 22 hours and 29 minutes. And my final, I was like, oh my God, I could get under 22:30. So my A goal was 22 hours, B goal was 24. So I was like, and honestly, I didn't factor in aid station stops into my time. And honestly, I probably would have factored in like a half hour for aid station stops. So I was pretty much ran how I wanted to run my aid time. So super happy with it. And I pretty much sprint across the highway. Ryan's like, "Don't get hit." and I didn't. I looked both ways and then ran across the highway. Jocelyn came running down, and I didn't know which building, if it was left or right. So I was kind of looking, and then it was the left. And so I sprinted. I ended up with a sprint finish, like one ultra. I can finally be happy with like how I finished, kind of, because like I was complaining the last 2 hours. But touched the door, and I think it was like 22:30 something. Was the 22 hours 30 minutes and like 50 seconds or 10 seconds or something like that was the final time. So when I ended it, yeah, and that was so that was it. It was just, yeah, Jocelyn and Ryan there. My mom couldn't be there, and then AJ wasn't there as well. So it was just kind of a couple of us, and I was beat up. I was a little bit delirious, but pretty much the day went as good as I could have hoped. Like I said, the A goal was 22 hours. I think if I accounted for crew stops, it would have been 22:30. So I ran pretty much exactly how I wanted to. All of the descents were steeper and gnarlier than you remember, you think they're gonna be. And so I was really happy with how those went, and with just like getting stronger as the day went by. I felt like there was, the weather, the night, the initial feeling kind of off on the Kinsman Ridge Trail, the Garfield Ridge debacle, getting over that, and then yeah, getting over the Wildcats was super. I was super proud of like the whole effort as a whole. So happy with it. They had a pizza for me at the end, so I was eating pizza on the car ride home. They had showers in the Joe Dodge Lodge, which I just went in there and showered, which was awesome. Got into warm clothes, and then it was a long ride home. It was like a few hours ride home, but yeah, that was step by step the entire effort. So, yeah, I was happy with how it went. So initially the Larson's time, I think it was like 32 hours. I think he finished maybe just under 32 hours, which I had told Larson too. Larson's a friend, super strong runner. I mean, he's done so much. Everyone knows Larson. Super good guy. His whole family, crushers. And I told him, like, I was never going for his time. Like, the goal was never like 1 minute faster than Larson. I wanted to put down a solid, supported FKT style effort on a route that was a little bit under the Weiss 100, and I think that's that's what happened, and that's what I did. And so, yeah, I was super happy with how that went. And I just think that route is so good. It's such a brutal route. I mean, the descents, obviously there are more descents on the White Mountains 100, depending on which way you do it, but the descents going that way are just so brutal. Yeah, it really is a good route. I mean, you get all aspects of the whites. And yeah, I think people should be going out, more people should be doing the Lodge2Dodge. I'm a Lodge2Dodge advocate. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I think it's a great route, and I think it would be great to establish it as one of the bigger, more premier routes in the whites for like the ultra marathon side of trail running. So I mean, hopefully more and more people do it, and then that, just legitimizes the route even more. But yeah, that was the Lodge2Dodge recap. I'm probably missing some stuff, but I feel like we did play-by-play of like how it turned out. Yeah, I was happy with it. I guess I don't have any more further thoughts. I could go into like kind of gear and splits and time stuff like that, but maybe we'll save that for another day. Or if you have questions, yeah, feel free to reach out. If you're going for the Lodge2Dodge, or if you're doing the route, definitely feel free to reach out for tips, pointers, anything I can tell you that would help you. I'd be happy to help anyone. So yeah, feel free to reach out on that. All right. With that being said, how much time we got? 1 hour 6. Holy smokes. Longest podcast to date. Well, with that being said, we're going to go through the next topic, the White Mountains Throwdown. The boot spur segment. So that was a segment that Run the Whites put on and kind of put a bounty and some gift cards on, which they've been doing all year. We kind of talked about this last episode, but the big route. So there were a few routes that they put on over the year, but the big route for the end of the year was September, was going to be a Washington VK, and the route ended up being the boot spur VK. So that was the White Mountains Throwdown. So let me pull up the results, and we're gonna go through this. And yeah, I kind of talked about this last week, but yeah, so Run the Whites had pretty much put on these kind of like Strava segment throwdown efforts throughout the year, and pretty much said, hey, well, we're going to highlight some segments, go run them, see what you can put up for a time, and we'll give, the top 10 finishers a gift card reward. So they did South Moat, Lonesome Lake, Mount Adams, and then the Boot Spur. And the Boot Spur, I think, was like kind of like the Mount Washington, the biggest one, the most money on it, and it was the end of the year one. And so, like I said before, I think it's really cool that Run the Whites put this on. I think it's a good way to, one, just give back to the runners, like giving gift cards out for running. Like, hey, if you think you're really fast and you want to prove yourself, go out there and do these things, and if you're the top 10 times, we'll give you some money. So I think that's awesome. I think it's kind of a way to like sponsor the runners and give back to the runners and kind of like promote some of these big routes. So I think that is super cool, the whole initiative that Run the Whites did for this. So yeah, just cool. All right, so here are the results. So we'll start with the women's. So the Boot Spur Women's Throwdown. So the segment, I think, is 2.5 miles and 32,000 feet of climbing. It's obviously very steep, very technical. It's going to be a slower VK than other regions. But yeah, we had a ton of strong people come out in super strong times. So we'll just go through. I'm going to put the results on the screen right now. We'll just go through the top 10. They all got gift cards. So the fastest time got a $300 Run the Whites gift card, and then the bottom one's got $25. So, and then $270, $240. So they're giving out, thousands of dollars for this stuff. So very cool. The number one woman ended up being Caitlin Patterson. So I think she had one of the earlier times, and she was kind of like ahead on the leaderboard for a long time, but she ended up staying number one. She ran a smoking time of 53:23, so she won $300. And then the rest of the top 10 we'll go through quick. So Jessica Marion, I think a lot of people know her. She's got a bunch of strong times, FKTs in the whites. So she's a super strong runner. I think she does some like sky racing. So just a great athlete and super strong runner. She was a couple minutes behind Caitlin. And then Charlotte Winkler. She's another super strong. I think she's from Vermont. Very strong runner, very fast. And she ran a minute behind Jessica. And then Britta Clark, who I think she ran UTMB this year. Again, I think she has the Pemi Loop FKT, just a mountain crusher. She was fourth. Hillary McCloy, everyone knows Hillary in the White Mountains. Super strong runner, lots of great finishes at different ultramarathon races. And then Gabby DeAngelis, Sarah Bozorg, Brianna Karbowski, Leah Nicholson, and Kaylin Ramsey. Okay, so they both tied for... Wow, two people tied for ninth. So Leah and Caitlin tied for ninth at 102.14 exactly. So those were the top 10. They all won some gift cards. So good job. Super strong times. The times range from, like I said, 53:23 to a minute and 2. So pretty much half of them in the 50s and then the low 1 hour mark. So those were the women's times. All right, now let's pull up the men's. So the men's, another early runner, David Sinclair. So David, so the men's and the women's time pretty much got set early and then no one touched them. But yeah, David Sinclair, I talked a little bit about him last week, but I mean, a world-class mountain runner. I mean, this is the standard in mountain running. So super cool that he came out and did this, and a super strong time. I think he even said, he said on the Run the Whites podcast, like, this might have been one of my best efforts all year. So if you want a competitive time in the whites, there you go. He won $300. So yeah, he ran in 40 minutes, 36 seconds. So just flying. And then in second was Stephen Kerr. He's a crusher. He's done a bunch of stuff in the whites. I feel like I always see him at Race to Cog. I think he came in second behind Joe Gray this year. If you've ever heard of Joe Gray, maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But yeah, Stephen Kerr is a slugger, and I think he does a lot of uphill stuff too, so just a super strong uphill runner. And I think he had ran a time maybe in like the 44s or the 43s like a week or two before. And so I think that just goes to show, like, obviously in running you can have good days, you can have bad days, and I'm not as experienced in like racing 5Ks, racing marathons, or road racing, but I think uphill races specifically and just like any mountain stuff, you can have good days and bad days. And I think just because you run a time and it felt hard or whatever, like, you could go out there the next week and run a much faster time. Like, I think you got to be feeling good. And, you know, obviously that goes into like prepping the night before, the day of, or whatever. But I think it's also like kind of a mindset thing. Sometimes these climbs can feel hard. And if that gets in your mind, like, you just don't have a great day, like, it is what it is. But just because you run something once and you don't have as good of a time, like, don't feel like that is your limit or, oh, I'll never get to X. Like, I think you can always surprise yourself. So Stephen Kerr came back and ran a faster time, so he came in second. Good for him. Lars Hogney, young. I talked about him last week, but yeah, a young kid, super fast. So I'm sure he has a bright future. Pierre Penoyer, everyone knows Pierre, super fast guy. I think he does skimo stuff. He's got a bunch of segments. Very fast. Jonathan McInerney, another guy, super strong uphill runner on a bunch of leaderboards, bunch of segments. And I think he came out and did the whole throwdown as well. Walter Mahonen, Monadnock guy, super strong. Finn Kind from Maine. I think he's got some good FKTs too, so he's a very strong runner. Dylan Flewelling. Travis Mahuin, another Monadnock guy, and brother of Walter Mahuin. Family is fast. And then 10th, Ryan Fournier. So that's who actually paced me in the Lodge2dodge. So Ryan went out there, and he got he got 10th. He ran 49.01. So the whole top 10 was in the 40s for the men's. So congrats to all those people. They all got paid. Yeah, so that was pretty much the White Mountains Throwdown recap. Two other things I wanted to touch on today. So Bubbas. Bubbas is taking place as we speak, I believe. So who knows how long they'll go for. I'm sure they'll go a good ways into tomorrow. So we can do a recap on that next week. But yeah, Bubbas, I just want to talk a little bit about my thoughts on the last man standing races. So the last man standing races is actually one of the reasons why I got into ultra running. I remember I saw Jesse Itzler doing the last man standing race in Maine, and that was like kind of one of the first things I saw, like, wow, look at these people, like this is insane. And so initially I wanted to do that race, but I ended up doing other things kind of as I got into ultra running. But I think the last man standing format is an interesting format. So for anyone who doesn't know, it's pretty much you run about 4 miles every hour, and you keep doing that until one person is left and willing to do a final lap. And so, yeah, pretty much you have an hour to do 4 miles. You can do it fast, you can do it slow, but you can't start the next 4 miles until the hour is up. So there's, you can't get ahead of people. It doesn't really make sense to run it super fast. And so the name of the game is just playing the long game, endurance, toughness, durability, your strategy of like having your crew kind of get you prepped for the next lap. It's a different kind of race. It's super cool. I think the camaraderie at a last man standing race is probably one of the best in like ultra marathon running. There's other ones, but just because you're running with everybody, so no one gets like super far ahead. You always kind of come back with people. You can run laps with people because the pace isn't like everyone can run at a similar pace, and you see your crew every hour. So it's a very kind of like you run it with a lot of people. It's good energy. It's high energy race, and you pretty much just see how long you want to go for. So I think all those aspects are very cool, and I think. Obviously, I think ultra running is cool because there are lots of different things. You can go short, you can go long, you can go fast, you can go slow, like all these different like styles of running. And so this is definitely a style of running that, anyone who wants it bad enough and is durable and trains kind of this format can do very well. Like you don't have to be some crazy genetic freak athlete to compete with a David Sinclair up boot spur. Like if you want it bad enough, you can run 4 miles every hour for almost for 4 days. So it's a cool format. I definitely want to do it one day because I really just love and respect the grit and the toughness, determination of it. But for me right now, I think for me the goal is motto always, stay healthy, get faster. That's the new motto for the podcast, the YouTube channel, stay healthy, get faster. That is always the goal. Yeah, just want to keep getting faster, keep getting stronger, and kind of like make sure I'm prioritizing speed and overall progress as opposed to just like, crushing my body via miles. And so I think that, one, I just don't want to train like a bunch of like slow, long miles. And then two, I think the race itself is... if you do it right, you're probably going to come out with it with some sort of injury or some sort of like, not severe, but like some sort of more than just a little nagging thing from an ultra. One, because the gait is, you're running the same kind of like gait pattern the whole time. It's like this super slow run, kind of fast hike. Whereas like when you're mountain running, you're going up, you're going down, using different muscles. You're kind of being athletic. You're engaging different parts of your body, your legs, and I feel like less overuse injuries can come from mountain running. But when you're just doing 4 mile an hour laps on relatively flat, your hips can go, your hamstrings can go. I mean, anything can go. Overuse injuries are super common, and I think when I get into an ultra, I want to give... when I go do an ultra, I have no plans after this ultra. My plan is to go until my body cannot go as hard as I can. So I'm not somebody who wants to like save myself when I sign up for something. Like I'm just gonna go as hard as I can until my body can't anymore. So for me, I feel like it's just a recipe for like getting some sort of nagging overuse injury, which I'm fine. Like that's just kind of the name of ultra running in general, but I don't want something like that right now. You know, the next few years, I think I want to focus on faster stuff, mountain ultras, getting speed, getting stronger, and then, like I said, I mean, the Whites 100 is the big goal, and then, some other kind of longer, more mountainy stuff. So I do not foresee myself signing up for Bubbas anytime soon, but one day I'm going to come out for Bubbas, and one day I'm going to go until I can't. So we'll see. But, yeah, we'll see how long people go for this year. It'll be an exciting event to watch. And, yeah, good luck to all the runners. Have fun. Keep going. And one thing I touched on last week, the last man standing, is at the beginning it's super high energy, lots of people. But when 99% of people have dropped out, you know, the crew, the volunteer, the race directors are all like very tired, delirious at the end of these efforts. Like it's just usually a couple people that are just in the dark alone, battling out to see who wants it more. So, yeah, the whoever comes out on top, congratulations, you have maximum grit. Okay, and the last thing I want to touch on, we did a little bit of a preview / results from last week, was the World Mountain Championships. So the two races I did not cover was the up down and then the long trail races. And so we'll just go through some of like the quick highlights there. So in the long trail, Katie Scheid, inevitable. I mean, the GOAT. She wins by almost 30 minutes. Wasn't close. Dominant showing. Kind of a White Mountains, a local, New England local, White Mountains local. Katie Scheid is just running the world, and I hope she continues to do so. So congrats to Katie Scheid. And then Hillary Giardi, who I think we talked about. I think she has the Mahusic Hut Traverse. It says she's from France, but she came in 10th. So super strong performances from them. And then in the men's race, Jim Walmsley. I mean, who would bet against Jim Walmsley? I think he won by like 10 minutes. So he did what probably most people expected him to. And then Adam Peter God, comes in 8th. So those are, I think, for the two in the top 10 for the U.S. And then the up-down mountain champs. So the winner of the up-down was the same for the women's race. The winner of the up-down was the same person who won the uphill race, Nina. So she wins 2 world titles separated by 2 days, which is pretty insane. But Lauren Gregory, she came in 5th overall. Again, kind of a local runner. She's run a bunch of stuff in New England, and super strong. I mean, 5th best mountain runner in the world. What else can you say there? So she was the top from the U.S., and then Anna Gibson, who she came in 3rd at the uphill 2 days prior. So she medaled. In that race, she came in 13th. I think she was the second American. I mean, I'm sure it's hard to do an all-out VK and then 2 days later race with the best in the world. But she still had a great showing in 13th. And then she won the Sunapee Scrambly U.S. Mountain Running Champs this year, which I did not know last week when we did this rundown. So she's super strong, super fast. Obviously, she came in third best uphill runner in the world on trails. So a couple crushers from the U.S. And then Mason Copy, I think he was the second American. He came in 14th overall for the men's race in the up-down. We talked a little bit about him last week. He's just an absolute crusher. He came in 2nd at the Sunapee Scrambly, the U.S. Mountain Running Champs this year. And super strong runners, done some stuff in the whites. So cool to see them out on the world stage. So that's it, guys. That is all I got for this week. This is, what are we at right now? An hour and 23 minutes. So this is by far the longest podcast we have. If you are still listening, thank you. Hope you enjoyed the Lodge2dodge recap, the results. If you have any feedback, so this podcast is obviously new. It's obviously going to kind of evolve over time. If you have any feedback, have any suggestions, comments, please feel free. Constructive criticism, I've gotten it from a few people, and I'm just like wishing it from everybody. Tell me what you like, what you don't like, how it could get better. yeah, would love to hear all of that. And yeah, just thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. I mean, yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah, the other thing too I was gonna say is somebody also, if you've made it this far on the podcast, somebody also tell me the audio quality. So I feel like this is like the it's like a pretty good mic that people use, but for podcasts, like I don't know if this is. I was listening on Spotify. I was like, I don't know if like is this mic good enough for like I hear other podcasts and they feel like much better audio. Is this mic good enough? Today I tried to hold it up to my face so it's closer, so hopefully this audio was better. But yeah, if the audio isn't good, somebody just tell me, hey, you need higher quality audio if you want me to keep listening to this more. So please feel free to comment that. But yeah, just going to try to get better. Keep bringing you good content. If you want to hear anything, let me know. Appreciate you watching. As always, stay healthy, get faster. See you next time. Peace.